convene this weekly Commissioners Finance meeting today, October 27, 2021. Appointed hour, 1:30 p.m. have arrived. Call the meeting to order, and we open with an opportunity for public comment from anyone who's in attendance or online who is not already provided for the agenda. Do we have anybody, any members of the public?
No public is online.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll move along then to business item 3, which is the minutes of our meeting of October 20th. Need action on that, please.
Move to approve the minutes of October 20th.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, with that, we'll move into our topics for discussion for today. And we have 3 bullet points here. Our first one, and we're waiting on our guest, so we will just skip over that one for now and come back to it in a bit. So on to the second item, which is the discussion of the Cumberland County Commission for Women and the 2021 budget and the 2022 budget requests, possible action to be taken on that request. So recognize the commission and invite you to comment now.
You can sit right up there and then just use the clicker to move it.
Slightly different from the last time.
Isn't everything?
Yeah. Okay, so just to introduce myself, I'm Jeanette Diamond. I'm the current chair or president, whichever term you want to use, for the Cumberland County Commission for Women. I have with me today Deb Jacobs and also Molly Moore, who are members of the commission, just to share any comments or interests you might have. And we go to the slides. So, where is your?
Is it sharing? Yeah, you should be able to click it. It should.
But where am I aiming it?
What
Towards the
unit is it?
computer or choose? Because it's not.
It's not working.
That's a new development. Not out of the ordinary.
Yeah,
It
no, I
does
see.
normally work
It
quite
looks like
nicely.
it's plugged in.
It's plugged in, yeah. Yeah, it's up.
Maybe I'm not clicking the right button. But I'm usually pretty good at this.
So,
How about we just do this?
I'm happy to go over there and stand. I don't have a problem doing that.
We're just gonna
We
do
do
this.
have the presentation in front of us.
And all you need to do is you can use the arrows. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
Sorry.
That's all right. So just for.
Is that working?
Something's definitely not working right here.
She tried it.
I thought you just did it.
There we
There we
go.
go.
Sorry.
That's okay. So
Is that slide 2?
that's 2. Okay, so it's clicking. Okay, now we're
There we
good.
go.
Sorry for that slight technical difficulty. So I'm not going to read the mission of the commission. I mean, you all know we're here to benefit and do things to make things better for women and girls in Cumberland County. What I'm going to do first is just do an overview of what we've done in the past year or so, just because we haven't met in a while. So we'll go over memberships and programs, some of the outcomes, and then we'll talk about funding requests that we're hoping to get approved for 2022. So in the past year for 2021, for new members, we've had 4 new member applications. All 4 of those were approved and have since joined. We currently have 1 member application that's pending and probably a few other inquiries that haven't come in yet. We are at our current membership level of 22. We have 5 members whose term ends at the end of December and they've decided not to renew. So we'll obviously have at least 5 open spots for 2022. We had 2 members who terminated or resigned in 2021 for a variety of personal reasons. So right now, as of January 1, we'll have 17 members going forward, and we'll do our best to recruit some new members to bring them in and bring us back up to closer to what we should be at, which is a maximum of 25. For 2020, we had 3 events. This is when COVID hit us all, as we know. We had a live event in February of 2020 for voter registration, which was quite successful. I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. We also had a Zoom event that focused on women in business and entrepreneurs. That worked out really well too. And then we helped with some fundraising and outreach for domestic violence services through Evolution Catering. So the voter registration event was Saturday, February 29th of 2020 at the Black Cultural Festival at Hope Station. I believe I do have it in front of me. We had probably about, I don't have the numbers on that. But there were hundreds of people at that program, and we very successfully shared information about voter registration and got people to register. So that was a really great representation for the Commission for Women. In July of that year, after COVID hit, we had our Zoom event. It was titled Resilient Women Pivoting for Success. We had probably close to 10, maybe 12 women who are either leaders in business, have their own business, starting a business. They shared their stories. We did outreach. I think there were maybe 80 people on the Zoom program and hundreds that actually clicked in after the fact. And, got a lot out of the program that we offered. And then, as I said before, in the fall, since we were still in the COVID pandemic in October 2020, we were trying to be creative in ways that we did outreach to the community. So we partnered with domestic violence services and also Evolution Catering to help them raise funds for their women and people at the shelter. And actually, domestic violence services, I think, ended up benefiting around $900 from the fundraising from that event. So that was a really great way that we impacted women and girls in Cumberland County. For 2021, so far, this has been a very slow year for us. It was very frustrating on a personal level for me, and I think our 2 members, Molly and Deb, can attest to that. We did have one event in May, which was our human trafficking event. One of our members, Jordan Pine and Kelly Smith, who's a member of the Pennsylvania State Police, partnered together with their resources and offered this through Zoom. This was the one you had numbers on. So we had about 80 people registered for the event. It was at no cost to the commission, so we didn't use any funds at all for that. We always do our best to be very conservative. If we can do something for free, by golly, we do it. We don't spend money where we don't have to. So it was a great seminar. We had a lot of attendees that left educated. They understand better what actually human trafficking is. Just to the slide. And they were also given resources and ways to help prevent or spot things that might be human trafficking in the future. So we're really happy with that outcome. We are registered to participate in the Cumberland County Women's Expo. One of the reasons we're doing that is not only to reach out just to the population in general, but to let them know what we can offer, what we've done, and to recruit new members, because we do have a need, especially in the past year and a half, since we haven't really been able to have live events up until this point. So this is really important for us. So we're registered to do that on November 13th, next month. We are currently working on a homelessness project. It's still in the formation, but it should be completed probably during the month of November. And our plan with this project for this year is to connect with Children and Youth Services, also the United Methodist Children's Home in Mechanicsburg, as well as, Deb, what was the name of the Shippensburg?
Shippensburg Community Resource Coalition.
Community Resources. And our thought is to assemble bags or backpacks for things with some supplies that are needed for homeless shelters or people that go there to get them started. The inspiration for this actually was a couple years ago. I was in Leadership Cumberland, and the Children's Home in Mechanicsburg told us all about how kids arrive there with their clothes in garbage bags and basically feel like garbage. And that's just totally unacceptable. So that was the motivation and inspiration behind this. So we were trying to think of a way we could make an impact this year since we're still semi-COVID bound. And this seemed like a very good project and a good way to do outreach to the community and benefit women and girls in Cumberland County. So that's what our plan is for this fall. Then going forward, carrying over into 2022, we have started talking about what we're going to do. The homelessness project may carry over into next year. Not sure about that. That's up for discussion. But we're looking at that. Also presenting a panel discussion on women in crisis during COVID-19, possibly in February or March. We're still considering doing a food insecurity and healthy eating program. We did not do that this past year because we couldn't. So, we don't want to just table a good idea. So we're pushing that to late spring of 2022. We also may do a refugee program and outreach in the summer. We're still doing the scholarship. We have that set up, but we haven't actually promoted it or, collected applications. That should also be happening this November and December with the goal of getting it awarded by December of 2021. If that doesn't happen, we're just going to do something this year, but we're still planning on doing it for 2022 and beyond. And then there is a chance of doing a second follow-up of empowering women and pivoting from July of 2020 when we did the first one. So that's a possibility for the fall of 2022. These are all things that are in planning and under discussion at this point. So for each of those programs, and in order to get our public meeting announcements out and the printing requests for any materials that we need for these things, this is our estimated costs for 2022 if we would do everything that I mentioned. Is there any questions or anything you want us to talk more about?
Jeanette, I'm wondering if the Zoom issue has been, if you're comfortable with where the Zoom issue is at, or if you think, I don't know how much a Zoom subscription costs, or I think you might need one on your own. And
I am very frustrated, as well as all of our members are extremely frustrated. I don't know if everybody here knows the Zoom issue that we had. We purchased a Zoom membership for Cumberland County Commission for Women for a 2-year subscription period that started in July or late June of 2020. It worked well for a couple of months, and then somewhere towards the end of 2020, our service was canceled by someone at Zoom. We don't know who or how or why. We didn't realize that right away because we don't use it every day. So I think it was January, at the January meeting, and possibly even in the April meeting, we found when we were doing that through Zoom, the service would cut off after 40 minutes, like we had a free account. So Tanya Miller, the one who set it up, reached out to Zoom and they said, oh, no, you don't have service or some nonsense. So we came back to the county. And Tammy, yes. Tammy and Stacy, if you're in here, I know they did their best to try and get it fixed. It was very frustrating for you too. So we thought we had it resolved. It worked well in July. We were thrilled. And then at the October meeting that we had over Zoom, it was back to the free cancellation status. So I don't know if you have any updates.
Yeah, so what it boiled down to is Zoom didn't request any proof of the 501c3 status and the fact that we don't pay sales tax and the Commission for Women doesn't pay sales tax. So that's what led to the cancellation over the sales tax of what, like $18. So apparently we were canceled, but we were never refunded. So that's why the county never knew that there was a problem until the meeting occurred and it was stopped at 40 minutes. So that was all resolved. And then Tammy, I'm not sure where you are at this point in trying to get it re-resolved.
And email conversations as we speak. Actually, the two contacts at Zoom are digging and trying to find out internally with them what's going on, because both the sales area representative and a billing coordinator both felt that it was resolved. And what they did was extend the contract so that we wouldn't be receiving a refund or something like that, but they agreed to extend it, and we have that in writing. So we're trying to find out, and unfortunately did not find out until our meeting took place again, that it has reverted back to a lower tier of subscription.
And they didn't send us any notice. Zoom never notified us or tried to contact us through the email accounts or the phone numbers that we had set up originally with the account. So we had no way of knowing until the meeting actually cut off, like that it was going to cut off. So I don't know what the answer to that is to make it not ever happen again. I don't know.
We'll definitely get some answers.
Okay.
The decision was made when obviously the pandemic and all of the struggles that came with it were rather new. To have the Commission for Women set up with their own account, paid through their budget. They meet 4 times a year, and then you have a handful of other times that you meet. So we'll talk about other solutions, maybe that don't involve having the separate account.
That would be great. I mean, obviously, we like having an account, like having the ability to flip to it if we need to. But it is very annoying, to use a nice word, when you're in the middle of a program or a discussion. We certainly couldn't rely on it right now for any formal programs because it would cut off and we'd look like idiots. That's the best way I can put it. The other challenge that we've had, and I'm not bringing this up as a formal complaint, it's just a challenge, with keeping the web pages up to date and some of our communications and outreach. It's my understanding right now that the one member who we have trained, Dana, has to have a county person present or with her in order to make any updates on our web pages for the Commission for Women. And that's a little frustrating because we haven't been able to keep them up to date for that reason. There's old information on the website from 2020 that's not accurate, and things we'd like to add. So my request for that would be if we can at least have things updated 4 times a year to coincide with each of the quarterly meetings. That way, if there's a change in membership or a program that we want to put out there or some other detail, it would be nice, at least on a quarterly basis, that we could get things updated. I'm not familiar with, the rules or the regulations regarding the website and web pages, so I can't really ask anything else, but I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I know Commissioner Fauci mentioned that there was some concern about updating the website. That was the first time I was aware that there was an issue. I'm more than happy to get in touch with all of the people that need to make this happen in a very simple and straightforward way.
I mean, I do understand the concern with accessing and updating things on your web pages. I work at the college. I do web pages there. I get it. You have to be careful. But we do need to have them updated a little more than once a year or twice a year to have it reflect positively on us and also on the county. So that's why. Anything else I can answer or offer?
Jeanette, when is the next meeting?
It is the second Thursday in January, which I believe is the 13th. And for 2022, we tentatively requested the use of this room for all of the 2022 meetings because it's a reliable space. Since we still are kind of borderline pandemic, if we know we have access to at least this space, we could have some live meetings, unless it's really, in a state of quarantine where nobody can be out there. Obviously, we wouldn't.
In that your budget request isn't earth shattering, but I want to ask, do you have any leftover funds or do you think you'll have some for 2020?
This year, absolutely, we'll have leftover. We do not plan on using the full amount we had for this year. We're still kind of working on what we want to do with the homelessness project. So we may use half of it from this year, but we're definitely not going to use all of it. No. So there will be some left. And that's only because we haven't been able to have live programs and do what we would normally do.
Anything else on that?
Yeah, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, other agenda items, we have also under topics of
Do we
discussion.
need to, I'm sorry, did we need to take some kind of action?
Maybe
If you
we can
choose
certainly
to,
do that.
we worded it that way so that you would have the luxury of being able to move forward if you felt comfortable, but also would have the time to review and digest if you wanted to take action later.
Well, I would be comfortable moving forward if the board is comfortable also.
And I don't anticipate having any further questions myself, so we'll entertain a motion at this point.
So I would move to approve the 2022 budget request for the Cumberland County Commission for Women.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we'll on to another discussion item. We have our choice here. We skipped over Mr. Favre since he left us cooling our heels. Decide. We got this. We want to hear from Toby first for the budget.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Back.
I don't have a PowerPoint, sorry.
What?
I don't have a PowerPoint to show you.
That's okay. It doesn't work.
The purpose of this is to just try to get approval on the proposed agreement to use with the university applications, but also the intent is to be able to use the same format, same agreement going forward. Would have to be modified with scope items and things like that. But let me just give you a few highlights on it if I can. The agreement structured around paying or receiving invoices on a quarterly basis. Included with the invoice would be two different forms. First form would be a payment processing form, which you should have received. That payment processing form ties back to the work scope or work plan, where they would identify the grant activity item. They would identify the description of what work was completed for that item, their budget, subtract off, be able to show total invoice to date and remaining balance. That report would need to be submitted on a quarterly basis, whether they have any expenses or not. That gives us the ability to be able to submit an update report to the federal government, which we've got to do on a quarterly basis as well. The second item that I created is a simple little progress report, which requires them to provide a little more written description in bullets, hopefully, of the progress to date. So I asked for progress this quarter, planned for next quarter, and then also any issues or concerns or challenges that they see in advancing the project, anything that's creating an issue. The purpose for this is to give us the progress for the quarter in writing that we can then lift and use, unless we have to edit it, to be able to put right into the quarterly report that goes into the federal government. But also to identify flag any issues or concerns with advancing the project, so we can kind of get a heads up. Hey, the scope may need to change a little bit. We've got a problem here to be able to do this thing, get it accomplished, and running into that problem, it may be bigger than our ability to solve it, which may flag it for us that we can then step in if there's something that can be done at the county level to help with it, or to connect them with somebody else to help to solve a problem to keep the project moving. It's basic communication, but it'll give us a little bit of information on what's going on with the project along the way.
Just so I'm clear. So, I mean, even this, if it works through perfectly, is going to be a handful for somebody on the compliance end.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there's any issues, and there will be issues,
Yes.
that just is going to multiply the two. Who is responsible for handling the processing of all of this compliance?
So it'll depend on what you want to do with me to a certain extent, right? If you want me to continue helping you longer term on this stuff, I'm more than glad to do it. If not, we would need to identify somebody or a group of somebodies to help with it. But I think that there's going to be technical leads, probably in other parts of the county for some of these projects, right? So if it's a mental health issue, it may be Annie or somebody in her area that's going to be the technical lead for a program area. So like all I can do then is say, okay, here's a problem that was flagged. Let's talk about what we need to do to help solve that problem, or understand it, communicate with the grantee about how they're going to go about solving the problem. And I can help with all that for sure, and try to keep the project on track. The other thing it'll give us the ability to do is give you a quarterly update on where we've got problems, where we've got issues. If we start to see no progress on a grant for a while that's been awarded, that had urgency when it was awarded, but no progress, you've only got 3 years or so to really deal with the allocation of funds, and you don't want to let something sit and then the last 2 years nothing ever gets spent, and then not be able to use the funds either. So there's going to be a lot of needs out here. So we're going to need to track that and put a tight leash on the grantees to ensure that they're making progress. And if they're not making progress, hold them accountable to make progress. And if not, be in a position to reallocate funds at some point if it would come to that. That's just my opinion. Obviously you've got to make decisions about that, but
I guess I'm a little less concerned about those who aren't necessarily doing anything.
Yep.
Or that I am those who are doing things and not meeting the reporting
Yep.
requirements. So we're going to have to ride herd on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll hold up their payments. So I would envision that if they don't meet the reporting requirements, this is all tied to their payment requests, so they won't get payments.
So that's a pretty strong incentive to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why it's all tied together. And then the other piece is the financial report and progress report would be due on the last Friday of the quarter, close of business on the last Friday of the quarter. The report to the federal government is due 30 days, the end of the month following. So it basically gives us a month to work with that material, go back and forth with the grantees, clean anything up, and assemble that report that goes into the federal government.
Good. So obviously, the more grantees we have, the more potential we have for issues that we have to
That's right.
handle as well. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
And there'll be I would imagine, some of the things that are on the list are probably going to be internal projects to the county as well. I mean, no specific ones in mind, but there's enough of them identified that there might be internal things to the county. There might be facility improvements or other kinds of repairs that are going to be here, and we'll want to keep track of those as well. And we'll have to do reports on those.
Other questions? Has Keith seen the awardee contract?
Yes, he's reviewed it, and the compliance committee has reviewed it. I had several meetings with them. They even caught a mistake that I made here in the past couple of days as well. I make lots of mistakes all the time, but they did a good job at catching that. There was a few things that I missed. I think I used one version too old when I first initially did it, but it was minor changes, but it's corrected. It was largely geared around the payment processing time.
Good. All right. I have no other questions. They're as usual.
Well, the compliance committee assembled everything. They put it together. They did a good job at putting the documents together, final document. They're also comfortable, like we decided not to propose monthly payments, do quarterlies initially. You could end up later with some grantees that struggle financially. And so, there could be a situation where you want to get potential cash flow, shorter term cash flow things going with them, so they're not challenged as much. Some of the smaller nonprofits, potentially, if they get a project, you could be in that situation. But largely, I think we propose quarterly payments and then let them come back if there's a cash flow problem, propose something else. But that's later. I mean, there will be future agreements to approve.
So Toby, if I'm also hearing you correctly, you're saying that we need to make a decision on how we're going to be tracking this and who's going to be tracking it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying for me, like, I'm happy to help and work forward and continue working forward, but I'm not assuming that. So,
Right, and springing it on you, 7 hours before you're supposed to start the project, it's not really reasonable either.
well, that's fine. I'm here to serve you guys however I can, help you however I can. I just don't want to make an assumption that that's the way it's going to work. So Kirk and I also talked today about the bigger picture. I meant to meet with Stacy earlier here this morning, so I will get with her, but I want to propose, senior staff get together and talk about that so we can get that program in front.
Thank you.
I think we just want I don't see you doing all of this because a lot of this
Yeah,
is clerical here,
Yeah, I get it.
but at the same time, we're going to have a plan.
Yeah.
So it's, we don't want Stacy running around
It
trying
won't
to
be-
track down.
it won't be her.
details. It's be in line with.
Yeah. Just to interject, I think Tammy and I had talked about whether some of our staff would have some time to provide the clerical assistance. And, we'll continue to monitor that as we start to see, at least with this first project, how much time is involved for the easies as well as the difficulties.
Right.
Right, and what is that breakdown, and what do we anticipate the breakdown between those two different types of processes to be?
Anything else, anybody? If not,
I think we're looking for an approval though. on this.
the documents, okay. Well, we've had a good chance to look at them. They're pretty simple, and your explanation was very clear, so I'll entertain a motion on the approval document.
I'll make a motion that we approve the documents related to the Higher Education American Rescue Plan Recovery Grant Program as presented today.
I second that motion.
Okay, it's moved, seconded, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we will move on to our third topic item, which is the 2022 budget Q&A session. And we have Dana and Tammy from Finance here to answer any, probably A of our queue, I guess, so. I don't know if you guys have anything to present, or is this just a follow-up for us to?
Well, it is a follow-up for if you have questions, but we also brought open book with us to show you if we have time.
How long do you need for that? Just a question.
It can be a couple minutes or it can be as long as you want. It depends on the questions.
Okay, that's fine. I may need to excuse myself because of another meeting, but no, the others can carry on with that. Okay.
So we'll start with, do you have questions about the budget? Is there anything specific that you had follow-up questions on that's going on view tomorrow,
Tomorrow it goes on view.
right? It's Wednesday.
I mean, that's
It's a
tomorrow.
Tomorrow you'll discuss it. Monday would actually.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that, about when it really goes on view.
Yeah, it's Monday.
I have a question for you, Dana, and it's not an oddball question. Katie, does the county, other than the commissioner's discretionary dollars to Katie, does the county give any money to Katie?
I'm going to say just the discretionary money.
Okay,
However, we have given them CARES money in the past couple of years. So there's other monies flowing right now. CHIRP, I believe, also flowing through them, but it is the discretionary money. However, if you look at our CAFR,
yes.
they are part of our CAFR. So it shows all their revenues and expenses.
Why are they part of our CAFR?
They are considered a part of the county, even though they have an independent board, because the commissioners appoint the board.
Okay.
The most simplified version.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It's legal
That
test.
makes, yeah.
Dana, I have a question on page 160. This Bible. I think I know what it is.
165,
169.
69. Okay.
Okay, about halfway down where it says transfers and primary government transfer, is that the IGT?
This is the nurse home. Yes. No,
It says general.
that's the general fund. Yes.
Okay, because I noticed a big drop off for 2022.
That is theirs.
That's the
Yes,
IGT.
That's our side.
Yes.
Okay.
And we did not budget for the IGT. However, we did budget for the nursing home and the subsidy because we didn't want to, we could have put both in, but then it would have increased the budget by what, $8 million? So we thought 4 million kind of met in the middle, instead of inflating the budget on the general fund.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm good.
I just have one thing, and I know there's been a bunch of conversation around the question of the narrative section, the strategy section. So I think, we're going to finalize that as it's moving forward under Stacy's direction, but we may need to have some further discussion on what our goal is for that. When that was first implemented, it was implemented by, in my first term with Commissioner Markley, and the idea was to provide a narrative section that would explain the highlights of the budget to the public, so it's a more transparent document, but also to highlight a number of the changes that we were making and to explain why, and to provide information to the public on the most important initiatives or the most impactful ones, or the big money movers. Now, a lot of the big money movers are things that we don't have a lot of discretion over anyhow. So we're always trying to strike that balance. And that process used to run through the commissioners. And not the first year, but we did it, but a lot of it was tied to essentially a visioning exercise that commissioners had to establish priorities. We haven't done that in a while. So I think we may need to revisit what exactly we want to accomplish with that section, and what public good comes from that section. And we're always trying to balance between just what's the big movers and what are the things that are things we control and things that may be of interest to the public because they're highly visible. So in the recent years, that kind of got taken over by the chief clerk exclusively, and the commissioners weren't really that involved. And I just think that it's somewhat evolved on its own to a degree that we may need to revisit and have a conversation about what we accomplish with that. So after this budget cycle, I think it'd be helpful if we have that discussion.
And in all fairness to Stacy, when Sandy was chief clerk, she kind of punted that over to finance to go to the different management team members and get it updated. We have not punted it back to Stacy yet.
Right.
So
it's evolved, and there's been a lot of questions around how it's evolved and what its real purpose is. And that's just kind of, I was going to say evolved, but it's more like it mutated. So
and it doesn't belong in finance. It does belong in the commissioner's office. So
I see us still seeking a lot of guidance from you guys, because it is to talk about the financial impacts and the policy impacts on the constituency. So, my point's made. Okay, anybody else? Okay, that's all of our topics of discussion. We'll move on to item 5, which is just other business.
We were gonna, I think Dana and Tammy are gonna show us some awesome stuff.
That's right. Okay. And again, I may have to cut out, so don't let that influence you.
I was just wondering about this today, about this program today, if I could get in and manipulate it, use it. So this is very timely. Thanks.
Right now, everything you're gonna see right now is all internal. So the
Okay.
public will not be able to see this, and we can turn it on when we put it on due on Monday.
Okay,
But right now, it's sitting all just internal to the
Great.
county.
thank you.
So the first one I can show you is the calendar. We split it in between revenue and expense because of the way it charts everything. So if you click on our revenue budget, you're going to be able to see it by fund, what the totals are. It likes to, you can sort it high to low, so it likes to bring up your biggest funds first and then down in descending order. If that's not the way you like it, you can always do it A to Z, and it'll sort them, it'll sort them in order by our fund numbers. You can see all the calendar budgets, each of the funds. Within each of the funds, you can actually click down in, and whenever you see the 39%, it's 39% of the calendar budget, not the total budget, the calendar budget. Once you click, if you wanted to see the general fund, you can then get down into all the other accounting That's. They all get so small because the general fund is so big. If I get down into a district judge, I can see their departmental charges. I can see what's budgeted revenue for their other, if I really was interested in their departmental charges, I can tell departmental's 41% of the MDJ days budget. I can get down into their departmental charges. I can see line by line the dollar amounts they have budgeted. I should have picked a better one because there's only one line item here.
To go back and sort it from high to low, and
then you should have a few account numbers. Oh, he only has two. But you can get down to the account number level. They have 5 account numbers in there making up the revenue. You're going to be able to see all 5 of them. If you're not a bar chart person and you're more of a percentage person, you can see a pie chart of the revenues broken down. If I come up one more level, you can see it by core costs, their departmental charges, grants, investment earnings. If you're a number person like myself, I can go in and I can see it. Everybody has a different way of viewing things, but it will be down again with the numbers to the account number level. There's no further detail beyond the account numbers. I can do the expense one. That might be the one that's more interesting.
you might want to show them how to get into it also. How to get there.
The website once it's out there live. So if I'm in the general fund, I can again sort high to low. I can sort it by A to Z and put them in order. But you've got your subsidies, which I can drill down. Let's get down into security, because the one thing I wanted to show you is salary and benefits. You can get to the account number level, but you cannot get to employee names or anything. That's the level that it stops at. So if I try and click on this, there is no detail beyond the account number.
Just how to get in.
Okay. The address is ccpa.openbook.questica.com at the top. Right now, the only thing out there live is the fiscal budgets. So the fiscal budgets are live. If somebody got on our website and found that link, they could get to it. It is on the finances webpage. There is a link to OpenBook to get to it. I think we'd have to do, Samantha would probably have to do a little bit of media to get it out there so that people can find it easier.
I think that's a good idea to get with Samantha and have her do media on it, because it's just, I think it's such a great tool, and the public will most certainly be interested in it.
So all the funds are there. General fund, you've got, you've got all the different funds. So if anybody was interested, in emergency telephone, you can get down in. They have 2 accounting units, eligible, ineligible. If I want to see what's in there, I can see salaries, capital, purchase property services. Wondering what that is, I can click on it. I can see their maintenance expense, software agreements, all their different account numbers, maintenance, repair expense on towers, electricity. It's all their account numbers. So it gives you a little bit more of that line by line detail looking at our budget versus what's on view, which is rolled up into summary group levels. So it gets a little bit more in depth into the budget.
And you say the fiscal budgets are what's on.
On view that you can see out there right now.
At what point does the general fund budget, the annual budget, go on? Is that after is that when it's viewed or is it when it's approved?
We could put it out there while it was on view because then you give the public the opportunity to look at the budget if they have any comments. Yeah. That would be my recommendation.
That's technically not an issue to do that. Okay.
That starts Monday, right?
Yes. And we've tied it out right now to the budget. Now, there are some little rounding differences that you will find between open book and even on our document. We're struggling with a few rounding issues depending on how you total things and how these reports want to. Trying to work through those details, but trying to get the priority to them, getting that budget document done. And it's occurring in the actual columns. It does not affect the 2022 budget column at all because there's no decimals in there. So it doesn't give us any rounding issues. When you get out into the actuals is where we've got a little bit of the struggle on the rounding.
Can you send them a link on how to get into it before it's live?
Thanks.
Just think about that one.
Because for the fiscals.
I gave them access to it. I'll think about how they get into it. I know how I go in and get to it. I think if they go in the same way because they have admin rights at 11. I just have to.
Okay.
But that won't let us accidentally change something, right?
No, I didn't
Okay.
give you access to change. I
Good.
gave you access to be able to get in there and do it. And the only other ones that have access is communications. I gave them a little bit more access. But you guys are in there with access to at least be able to do everything. The one thing I like about Open Book is took us 30 minutes and I was training Carrie on doing it the first time to copy the views in. It's pretty quick.
Communications has access to,
Open Book.
but
The link into Questica, they do not have.
okay.
I control that.
So they likewise cannot manipulate any numbers or anything.
No, not on
the
this stuff.
exposition.
They may be able to use it for different types of public outreach in the future too.
Yeah, that's.
I guess they could really, if they got in there, they could delete it. They couldn't change any numbers on it, but they could actually delete the visualization.
Samantha's not going to come driving in a BMW next week, right?
Well, she may come in a BMW, but it's not from any country that's here.
The issue being, I can easily see me getting into that and accidentally changing something and not realizing I have done it. So I don't.
You don't have to. Okay.
No, you don't have to worry about that.
I mean, you could do it, but you don't have access.
Good. That's good.
Any questions on this that you're going to need to go through in Open Book here?
I just get in there and start messing around. Okay.
Once we look at it, we may, I think it'll occur to us, yeah, can we do this? So try not to bother you too much.
Okay. We're here if you have questions.
All right. Anything else on that then? Okay. That was helpful. Thanks for your time. Energy on that. Okay, that being the case, now we'll move on to item 5, which is other business. So any additional topics to cover?
Just a comment though, there were no meeting minutes here. I just want to make sure that they're attached. This is officially on file. So,
It's not.
Okay, yes,
thank you.
all right.
That's all.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Stand adjourned. Thank you all.
And on this